What's going on, guys? My name is Psyche, and welcome back to Dead Cells. Now I know, it's been a very long time since our last build video, but today, after a month's rest, I am glad to be back. And what better way to start us off than playing some Swift Sword. Now this was a weapon I've always wanted to showcase for a very long time. In fact, before the charity event that I was a part of a couple weeks back, I actually recorded a normal mode run featuring the Swift Sword, except the only thing is that I didn't get the Swift Sword until halfway into the run. And again, this is part of the reason why I don't do normal mode runs anymore. I just think it's better is to just have an entire run featuring the weapons I want. But before we go any further, to address the elephant in the room, I know this is a custom skin that I'm using. I'm assuming this is supposed to be Rem from ReZero, but honestly I'm not too sure. I just saw that I have a mod loaded into my game, so I thought might as well use it. This mod I believe is made by Nold, who makes a lot of other interesting outfit mods. The only reason I don't mod the game very often is because sometimes it just straight up crashes my game. But enough of that, we're gonna go into the toxic sewers. And as you notice, I did pick up velocity as my first mutation. So this is probably one of the few instances where this mutation is actually good, since if you keep up the aggression, you can essentially keep the speed boost for the entirety of a biome, and you'll see just how good this is a bit later. But speaking of ReZero, I actually just started watching Season 2 like a couple days back. I know, I'm pretty sure it's been out for like a year by now, but I just never had the chance to watch it. But yeah, I think it's definitely a very solid franchise, and I'm excited to see where it goes. So I'm skipping pretty far ahead here, and wow, I've already have over 60 kills in the biome. So that's pretty incredible. As I said, Swift Sword has always been one of those weapons I wanted to showcase, I just never had the chance to do it. And on top of that, you guys are gonna see a little surprise later on into the video. And I'm also going to showcase a skill that I almost never use because I used to think it was terrible, but after today's showcase, it is actually extremely game-breaking. But to talk a little bit about my life, school's been keeping me busy, a lot of programs to get into, a lot of events to go to, and I know that a lot of you guys are probably in high school going into college. At least that's what it says according to my YouTube statistics. But if that's the case, I would say definitely try to enjoy your time in high school, because that is a period of your life that you're never getting back. If you guys are wondering what I used to do in high school, I basically did nothing. I was like this shy, reserved guy that sat in the back of the classroom, and it wasn't until college that I realized you kind of have to bring yourself out there and meet new people. But that's really just a part of life everybody has to get used to. So, going into the corrupted prison. So this is gonna be somewhat of a tough curse to lift. Mainly because you kind of have to play really fast in order to pull off crits with the Swift Sword. And because you have to play slightly slower when you're cursed to really be careful of your surroundings and not take any damage. Especially with these monsters, like I just don't really want to deal with that slammer right now. Either way, I did pick up a colorless Rampart shield. I know this is one of the most interesting shields in the game, and of course, just when I was about to kill those two monsters, they ran into the range of the protector. Talk about bad timing. But I'm going to kill this little dummy here, and I'm going to get a legendary item just in a bit. And I've heard a lot of rumors about how legendary items are extremely busted, and in this case, it is no exception. I am talking about that legendary Mushroom Boy. Now you might be wondering, in case some of you are out of the loop, how can a legendary Mushroom Boy be overpowered? Well, as it turns out, for some weird reason, the Mushroom Boy, when it does damage, it completely ignores the boss damage cap. But to better showcase this, you guys are gonna have to wait a little bit until we get to some of the bosses. In the meantime though, since enemies don't have damage caps, I can kinda just let Mushroom Boy do all the work for me. But speaking of legendary items, recently I know that I haven't been playing with them a lot, but legendary items are very weirdly designed in the game. They're almost an entire league of its own. Essentially, the legendary variant of a weapon is completely different from its normal counterpart. So in the case of Mushroom Boy, for example, the legendary version of Mushroom Boy essentially just breaks the game. This is a big blunder I'm gonna make right here, gonna take a lot of damage, but that's okay, just gotta go back and get some of that food. I can't have Ram dying on me all the time, just like in the show after all. And this was the other piece to the puzzle of the build, and that is a tonic. Now you might be wondering, why am I picking up a tonic while I am playing Swift Sword? And on top of that, it is a green skill, so it doesn't even align with brutality. Well, as it turns out, Even if it doesn't say it on the tooltip, the tonic actually gives you a speed boost when you use it. And this is extremely beneficial in bosses, because since to get a speed boost the normal way, you have to keep killing enemies. But since that is not possible in a boss fight, the tonic is probably the other only way to get it. I know before, a couple patches ago, some people used to run the Masochist mutation, because as far as I am aware of, when you walk into a trap, it actually gives you a speed boost, which I am not sure is correct or incorrect. But other than that, I am basically just gonna completely breeze through the biome here. You got those small flying enemies that are just being annoying, but really the Swift Sword has a large enough range that it's not even an issue. Of course, there are times where you can't do anything, and you just gotta run out of those small flying bats. And just like that, Mushroom Boy is gonna single-handedly take out an elite disgusting worm. So just like how we did it in the Toxic Sewers, we're just gonna no-hit the entire biome, and of course as soon as I say that, I take damage. And it even came from a shield bearer, which is one of the easiest enemies in the game, so that's a little bit embarrassing. Now, I believe the last time I featured the tonic in a showcase run was all the way back in my first ever showcase video. If you guys go all the way back, I believe that was when I showcased the Spite Sword. Now that seriously brings back some memories. Either way, we're gonna head into the Conjunctivius boss fight. Now, I originally was gonna get Mushroom Boy to do most of the work for me, but since Conjunctivius is kind of in the air, I can't really do that. However, because for some reason the speed boost I got lasted so long that I even went into the Conjunctivius fight, so I was able to kind of carry it over here and do additional damage with the Swift Sword. But in a second here, you guys will see just the amount of work Mushroom Boy is putting into these encounters. But speaking of which, I'm actually wondering if I should do a guide on legendary items. I do know that it's kind of been a weird thing in the game for a while. In fact, there are some affixes in the game that are only accessible to legendary items. For example, I know for the Frantic Sword, there's actually an affix that lets you heal up to 50% of your health whenever you hit something. And I know that's one of the most rare affixes you can get on it. Now, I did actually feature the Frantic Sword in one of my earliest runs, and that was when I did the Double Pets run, all the way back before I had 1,000 subscribers. And I'm just gonna let Mushroom Boy explode here, and the boss, along with Mushroom Boy, is just gonna explode spectacularly. And at this point, I'm feeling a little ballsy. Let's go somewhere we've almost never been to before, and I'm talking about Slumbering Sanctuary. Now, I know, I've pretty much trash-talked this entire biome when I was doing my biome guide, but I was feeling confident I could pull this off. Besides, I still haven't taken a single health flask yet, and after that incredible no-hit fight, I am feeling extremely confident. And besides, I haven't been here since, I believe, the Ferryman's Lantern showcase, which was all the way back in February. But here, we're gonna encounter the thing that I fear the most about coming to the Slumbering Sanctuary, and that is the Cursed Chest. Now, you might call this bad luck, but a couple minutes ago I was just dealing with a bunch of small flying bats, and that would have been extremely beneficial for lifting this curse. But alas, you can't expect everything to go in your favor. I'm gonna make a bunch of small cuts here and there, and that's really because I'm trying to find more enemies to kill. This is a very, very dangerous curse, and as soon as I see that elite, I'm just gonna ignore it. And this is probably a nice tip I will give to you guys whenever you guys are dealing with curse chests, and that is to just not deal with elites. They're extremely dangerous, and I would say the variant that causes me the most amount of trouble is the one that shoots a bunch of projectiles at you. And I just entered a door there, but since I was fast forwarding, I briefly saw an elite monster, so at that exact moment, I was just like, nope, I am dipping out of here. But I did ended up having to fight an elite here. Luckily though, Mushroom Boy is so overpowered I didn't even have to worry about it. So that is a huge weight off my shoulders. Gonna flip the switch now. I haven't mentioned this before, but I would say the Slumbering Sanctuary soundtrack is probably one of my favorites in the game. I'm gonna do a 200 IQ move in a moment here. I'm gonna smash into some spikes because why not? Health is overrated anyways. And I know a big reason that I know a lot of you don't go to the Slumbering Sanctuary is because of those golems. They are extremely annoying to deal with. And thankfully they are exclusive to this biome, so at least that's that. However, I did imagine that I would have to deal with these guys a lot, but as you guys saw, Mushroom Boy just kinda one-shots everything, including the elites. Now having experienced this, what are you guys' thoughts about legendary items? Some of them just completely bend the rules of the game mechanics and just break the game outright. And I've heard a lot of rumors about how the legendary variant of Mushroom Boy is just completely overpowered. so I wanted to try it out for myself. Now of course, if I were to do a skills tier list, I would probably still rank Mushroom Boy in the C tier, mainly because it doesn't do as much as the other two pets. However, that being said though, even though the legendary variant is obviously overpowered, you can't exactly plan your build around a legendary item because they just kinda appear out of nowhere. I'm gonna do a tactical retreat and heal up with one of my health flasks. Now, being that I'm in Slumbering Sanctuary, I don't have a food shop here, so that means I'm gonna have to go with a slight disadvantage into the run, which means I have no way to fill up the missing health flask. So that is yet another reason I don't come here very often. Either way, I'm just breezing through the biome at this point, and one thing I would really want to improve on is my loadout, because I have a lot of money on me. 50,000 gold, that is a lot. Normally by this point I would have purchased a health flask, but since this is a biome that I don't go to, what can you do? You don't really have a choice but to just keep going. That being said though, after this run, I'm definitely going to take a closer look on legendary items now that I know how they function. This isn't something I usually experiment with, since I've always undervalued the power of legendary items. I know they've been in the game ever since the very beginning, but now that I have a chance to see the full potential of one, I'm definitely gonna have to change the way I think about the game from now on. Heading into the caverns because why not? Let's fight Giant. This is a swift sword run, so we might as well stick to the theme and go as fast as possible. In fact, I would say this run that I'm doing is probably one of the fastest runs I've done. When I completed this run, the duration was around 42 minutes, which is way below the average. Usually my runs last slightly over an hour. And this also changes my views about the velocity mutation. Now I know that with the Swift Sword it's very beneficial to have it with you, but even without the Swift Sword, if you just pick up velocity and you play really fast, it can negate a lot of the issues you can have with melees. Since in some runs I do it so fast, just breezing through the biomes, that I don't even notice melees is a thing, and there are times, and it's usually survival, that I take so long and I will see a noticeable increase in difficulty from the melees. But at this point I'm gonna show off some of the footage of me beating the larger, tougher enemies such as the ground shakers and the slammers. I mean, have you guys ever had one of those runs where you get so overpowered and you're just like, yep, this run is essentially over. There is no way I can lose. There are very few other runs that can make me feel like that, and I would say that is what the definition of an S tier item would look like. That being said though, I don't think the Swift Sword alone has what it takes to be an S tier weapon, but with the game breaking abilities of Mushroom Boy, I wonder if I can just AFK some of these fights. But speaking of interesting builds, if you guys ever have any suggestions on items that should be run together, you can definitely let me know in the Discord server. Now I have a lot of people over there that have been suggesting me builds, and just a few that I'm thinking on top of my head. I know I'm probably going to be doing something with the Snake Fangs and then either Warpan or Infantry Bow, because those two work very well together. And as soon as I went to the giant fight, here is when I knew this fight isn't going to be as simple as I thought. Since I thought Mushroom Boy can kind of jump onto the fists and attack the eyeball with you, except he can't actually do that. As for whether or not he's actually attacking the fists, that is a bit debatable too. Sadly, he's a little bit too short to be useful in this fight. But here is when the tonic comes in clutch. Because the tonic gives me a speed boost, I'm just gonna use it when I'm attacking the eyeball directly. And that is how I'm able to get in some extra hits. But no matter how hard it seems that the Swift Sword is struggling, Giant is essentially always my go-to boss fight, and I know it's the same for a lot of people. Unless they change the way how Hype Castle or Distillery functions, a lot of people are just gonna come here and ignore those biomes altogether. Do I have a problem with that? Not really, but I do think there should be some way to balance the fact that you're skipping an entire biome. Either way, we're just gonna end the fight right then and there, and as I said, we're just gonna go straight into Hand of the King. Now, you may have seen that I struggled a little bit with the Giant. However, when it comes to Hand of the King, it's a completely different story. He's gonna do his little taunt as we enter the fight, and as soon as we do that, we're just gonna drop Mushroom Boy. And look at that damage! My short friend here is really just not pulling any punches. Now, I don't know what it is about legendary items that makes it do that, but I'm thinking this cannot be in the game. This is just too overpowered. Who knows, maybe Mushroom Boy is just really Subaru in disguise and he's just taking revenge for Rem. He finally becomes overpowered in true isekai fashion. But entering the second phase, and as you can see, just 2 more hits and the Hand of the King is down. So that was 3 boss fights no-hit back-to-back. Can we no-hit the final fight for 5 BC? Well, you're gonna have to wait and see, or you can just use the timestamp. Either way, going into the final stretch of the game by now, this is where I always get a little bit nervous because you kind of have gone so far, you really don't want anything to slip up. And I didn't show the footage for this because I forgot to hit the record button, but in the no-hit door, I did pick up a legendary Crusher. Now you might be wondering, what about tonic? Isn't it gonna be really helpful in the collector boss fight? But since I've seen so much from Mushroom Boy already, I was having really high expectations for legendary items, so I thought another one surely couldn't hurt. And really, Crusher on brutality is gonna be pretty overpowered as I am theorizing. And you may have noticed, but I always changed my mutations a little bit at this stage of the game. While having the speed boost is nice and all, I just don't think it matters that much anymore since we're so late into the game, and really Mushroom Boy is what's carrying us right now. Now I could be wrong about this, but how legendary items work is that it scales off your 2 most highest colors instead of just your highest color. So in this case, because I have 33 stats in brutality and 6 in survival, I believe Mushroom Boy scales off as if I have 39 stats. So here is when your approach to the game slightly becomes different when you have legendary items. Because instead of trying to balance out your other 2 sub-colors, you're essentially trying to focus on your highest 2 colors instead, so you're not really worrying about health anymore. You're just trying to push 2 stats as high as possible. Now I wish colorless items worked the same way, but unfortunately they do not. Would have been really nice to have a Swift Sword that scales off 40 stacks by this point. Either way, we're gonna get the second key from the Slammer. Well, I didn't even see what happened. I just went into the fight and in the next second, the monster was dead. But the only thing I gotta be careful at this point is still health. Now given that I have my health flask at full capacity, I'm feeling pretty confident. And this little tower area always gives me some anxiety. I've thought about maybe I can do like an Astrolab guide for you guys, that might be pretty cool. I know some of the biomes in the game are just really weirdly designed, and they really warrant some guides to make it slightly easier for everyone else. The other biome I've been thinking about doing a guide for is obviously Distillery. I even today struggle with that biome sometimes. We're gonna clear up the rest of these monsters, and hopefully get close to the final fight where we can end things once and for all. Now in terms of the future for the game, I do theorize that there is going to be one more paid DLC that comes out either later this year or early next year. And to complement that, I know a lot of people, especially on Reddit, have been pointing out different lore rooms that hint at possibly new characters and a brand new boss fight, which I'm extremely excited for. I mean, the last time we had fresh content was all the way back in 2.3 when we had the 3 new mutations as well as the slow melee weapons. Either way, here is my final setup. I know it's a little bit surprising because the legendary Mushroom Boy is only in the 7th tier, but I think when it comes to legendary items, it really does not matter which tier you have them at. Even if it's at the 4th tier, it's still extremely good. So we're gonna unleash Mushroom Boy right now and we're gonna see just how much damage he's gonna do. Now obviously this is no Hand of the King. I think Collector just has more health in general, but even then, Mushroom Boy still does a significant amount of damage. We're gonna get him to do the first heal, and I don't quite remember if I can get him to do the second. We're gonna use the Crusher to interrupt his attacks. Sadly, couldn't get his second heal in, which is a little bit unfortunate. Sometimes you cheese the game so hard, you can actually get 3 heals just in the first room. But you're gonna have to cheat a lot in order to do that. Now, I'm someone that plays very carefully. Even if I saw like a double damage item, I actually debate about taking it or not, unless I'm very confident that I can win with it. But as we're entering the second room, he's gonna do the second heal. Now, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get him to, teleport us somewhere else. And no, actually, he's just gonna heal right then and there, so I guess that was the third heal. As it turns out, this fight lasted a lot longer than I expected. In a second here, I originally thought the Swift Sword was powerful enough to one-shot him, and I even exploded Mushroom Boy because I thought it would be like a grand finale. It would be a nice way to end things. But I guess Collector just has more health than I expected. And unfortunately, in the last second, I'm gonna take some damage. So I guess now I can't clickbait you guys and say I got a no-hit on all 4 bosses. Either way, finish off the fight, Collector is down. So what would you guys rate this build? Or I guess specifically, what would you guys rate Legendary Mushroom Boy? I guess the next time I see one of them, I'm just thinking to myself, well, I guess that's a free win. Either way, hopefully you guys enjoyed this showcase run. I had a lot of fun with the Swift Sword, so until the next showcase, See you all later.